Welcome to Escape the Noise, a podcast about hiking, mental health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Joe Vogel. We're coming to you from the Silicon Slopes studio in downtown Provo, Utah. Our guest this week, Jensen, an ultra runner who overcame colorectal cancer in 2021 and finished a 100-mile marathon just a year later. Aaron grew up camping and hiking in the Uinta Mountains, but says he lost a bit of himself in his 20s and early 30s. He wasn't eating well or exercising and didn't feel healthy. He eventually turned back to hiking and trail running, but then got hit with the gut-wrenching revelation that he had cancer. Listen as he explains how that moment changed his life and what his journey has been like since. Talk to us about how you got into hiking. You mentioned that it was something that wasn't like as big of a part of your life, but then became a very big part of your life.
Yeah. It was in the scouting program as a youth. I had a scout leader that liked to camp, and he would take us camping, and he'd like to do backpacking. And so we would backpack into areas, and we would go into the Uintas several times and do several nights in the Uintas. And that's where the love of the mountains came, because when I was out there, I was just so at peace and loved it. And then got out of the scouting program, and then life hits you.
Right.
You graduate high school, life hits you.
Right.
And after that, I got married young and just got working and kind of just got too busy to even go out in the mountains. And I think
that happens to a lot of people,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially in your 20s and 30s.
Yep.
You know, there's family responsibilities, there's a career, there's just a lot of stuff. And it's, I guess, about trying to find, how to put those things that mattered to you, right, back into your life. Is that kind of how it played out for you, that eventually you got back into it because you remembered what it meant to you?
Yeah. I had struggled with weight. I had lifted weights when I was in my 20s to stay fit. And, but I was never like super serious at it. Just like dabbled in it. I'd go good streaks for a while, and then I hurt my back, and I just totally fell off. That was in my late 20s, and just gained a lot of weight through my late 20s and early 30s up to where I was almost 300 pounds. And then I started feeling really sick.
Yeah.
And like I went and got diagnosed. I had high blood pressure, and that's what actually triggered me to stop doing what I was doing and do something about it. Cause I'm 30, I was 36 at the time. I'm like, I'm too young to be on blood pressure medication. And so I decided to start eating better, and then I needed to do something active. Right. And I didn't want to pay for a gym at the time. And I thought that would just kind of be a repeat of what I was doing anyway. And I'm just like, why don't I just like hike? Like I like to hike, and I knew I liked to hike.
Yeah.
And so I just started looking up the local trails here in Utah County and got myself familiar with them and just started hiking. And that led to running,
mm-hmm.
because I saw runners out on the trails, and that just intrigued me. I'm like, people run trails? And I had no idea at all what that was. I had no idea there was races longer than a marathon at that time.
Yeah. I mean, trail running's a whole different thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit. Maybe just kind of tell us a little bit more about you. You grew up here in Utah?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. I grew up here in Utah. I was born in Ogden, but my family moved, and we moved to Utah County when I was 9, and I had been in Utah County the rest of my life. So that's what I'm familiar with. I'm not familiar with the Ogden area, so mm-hmm. I don't remember any of that.
Have you done anything outdoors in other states? Like, have you been to national parks, or is it mostly just like here in Utah?
Yes, I've been like the Great Basin National Park. I've been to the Grand Canyon. I ran across the Grand Canyon.
How was that?
That was awesome. I did the rim to rim to rim.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I love that one. And then I did I've done a lot of stuff in Arizona. I've done a few things in California. I've been through the redwood forest since then, and
The redwoods are amazing.
they are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of my
Definitely.
favorites. Okay. And then, you talk about how, part of this transformation was what you talked about, right? Losing weight, kind of the blood pressure, like being kind of just concerned about your
Mhm.
health, right? But then cancer comes along, right?
Yep.
So talk about that experience and how that played into this.
Yeah. So about 5 years after I've been into hiking and running and ultra running, I just started getting weak, and I was having a harder time running. But I just thought it was like I was in my 40s. I was like, this is the 40s, I guess. You get old and you slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And I had cancer symptoms that I ignored, and got diagnosed with cancer in the end of 2020 and all of 2021.
That was during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yep. The symptoms started in 2018, and I ignored them until 2020,
Okay.
and went and finally got checked at the end of 2020 and found out I had colorectal cancer. So the 2021 would be the year I ended up fighting that, doing all the stuff, having a surgery to remove the tumor and everything, and starting the recovery process of getting back into shape.
So talk about I guess, just the psychology of that, right? I mean, it's one thing you feeling the physical symptoms,
Mhm.
right? Get the diagnosis. I mean, just that moment, like, what was it like when you got the diagnosis?
Probably at first it didn't hit me that much. It was a week later when it hit me, when they called and told me the biopsy results, because the doctor that initially found it confirmed it was cancer. Well, he said he's seen enough. He knew it was cancer. Sent stuff off the biopsy, and he called me like a week later, or 4 or 5 days later, and told me indeed it was cancer. And then this is what shook my world. He told me from where the tumor is placed, you will most likely end up with a permanent colostomy bag the rest of your life. And that right there
Terrifying.
shattered. Yep,
Yeah.
it shattered my world. I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do that. No way I want to do, like, that takes everything that I am away from me.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought, even though I was wrong.
So that was the initial response, and then
Yes.
how did it play out from there?
I started doing treatments, radiation treatments, chemo treatments, trying to help shrink the tumor is what we were trying to go for, so that they could remove it and reconnect without having to do permanent colostomy. And so that's what it was. But the whole time, like, radiation and chemo is so hard.
Yeah.
It just took it out of me. I mean, I wasn't enjoying anything, and I just wasn't even sure if it was going to work anyway.
Right.
I couldn't find much information on colostomies
Mm-hmm.
or ostomies at all. And so I had no idea what I was going to be able to do. And my thought was still, like, if I don't shrink it enough to remove it, I'll just, like, that was the final fight. I'll go out that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pursue the ostomy route. And I took that way for many months.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot here on this podcast about mental health,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mental and physical health are so
Yeah.
deeply intertwined, right? And certainly when you have something like this that you're battling, like, I mean, what was the toll, especially when it was unclear, right? Like
Yeah.
what your future was going to look like. What was the toll on your mental health?
Oh, my mind was in dark places.
Yeah.
And I would go hiking 3 or 4 times a week to help clear my head. I was going into work later than normal so I could rest, and I would actually try to go hike before work. And they were just doing little hikes and stuff, a couple miles, not my big stuff that I was used to.
Yeah.
But I was just getting out in the mountains, and it would help.
Yeah.
And then I would go do radiation treatments and then be wiped out the rest of the day. And, but I was still trying to get out in the mountains, and I was still hiking whatever I could do. And it was doing a ton because it just gave me time to think and just like part of me was like, I'm just enjoying this for the last time. And part of me was like contemplating, do I try to go on? Do I try to see what I can do with it? If this chemo and radiation doesn't shrink the tumor enough, or what do I do? It's just a lot of thinking time, a lot of time on my own and stuff. And a lot of times I'd go out on the trails and just kind of go off the trails and just sit alone and think.
Yeah.
So,
were most of your, I guess just in general, like during this time and in general, like are most of your hikes solo or do you go with other people or?
most of the time I go solo when I run. So I do run with friends like once a week in the mountains, but most of the time, everything I do is solo.
So yeah, I mean, it gives you a lot of time, right? I mean, and I guess like, as I'm thinking about this, what you're going through during this time, you know, part of it's like certain things are out of your control, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard, right? So can you kind of talk about what you were grappling with internally in terms of, you know, certain things I don't know, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you know, again, things that you can't really control, but then, I don't know, making your peace in some way with what the future may hold.
Yeah. A lot of times I would think of how my family was what I could do to help them move on after everything. If I don't know how long I could have lived with it had I not gone through with the surgery. So a lot of times in the mountains, I was thinking of them and how they would go on without me and making sure I kind of had everything set up for them and stuff to go. And I probably wasn't that close to death's door, but I was acting like I was. Yeah. Because I just
didn't know.
Yeah. And I would try to find stuff about the colostomies, and the doctor would tell me, like, you can do stuff. He says, he would tell me about people that were rock climbing and all that kind of stuff. He's like, you can do whatever you want, but like, I didn't know that. I didn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't have one. He doesn't know.
Right.
So that was my thinking.
And so kind of take us through then. You have the surgery, right? Then what?
So I found an article of a marathon runner that runs with an ostomy, permanent ostomy. And that's when I saw that, that's when I'm like, okay, you can run a marathon, you can go hiking, you can do ultra running as well. If you can run a marathon, you can run an ultra. That was my thought. So I said, I'm going to go through with it. I doubted all the way to the operating table until they put me out. And then I had the surgery. And afterwards, the doctor, I had a 100-mile race on the schedule 9 months after the surgery.
Oh, wow.
And it was a race I had put on the calendar 2 years before, but I had deferred it twice. I deferred it for COVID, and then I deferred it for the cancer.
Right.
And so I told him, I'm like, I got this race in 9 months. Do you think it's doable? And he's like, absolutely. He says, I'm not the one that's going to hold you back. He says, you just follow my directions to recover for the 12 weeks of recovery, and we'll get you back out there and training and stuff. And so after surgery, he just told me I can walk. He says, I don't care if you run. He says, I just don't run hard. Don't run fast and all that kind of stuff. And he says, I don't care if you hike. He says, the downhill will probably bother you more than the uphill just from while you're healing. And so he, within 4 or 5 weeks, I was hiking up Rock Canyon. And then,
that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually summited Kive Peak then.
Did you?
Yeah. I guess it was called Squaw back then, but
yeah,
I summited in the fall, like 4 or 5 weeks after my surgery.
Wow.
To just look at the fall colors. And I took my wife and daughter up with me.
Oh, nice.
So there was no running at all, but
you made it up.
Yep. I made it up, made it down.
That had to have felt amazing.
Yep. After that, I was like, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I think I can do this. And I wanted to bring awareness to people with the same.
This was 2021?
Okay. It was the
fall of 2021. So, okay. So then you have that experience, right? And it probably gave you like a sense of hope, right?
Oh, yeah.
You talked about in your responses too, just like what a profound kind of life-changing transformation this has been, right? Just even in terms of the way that you look at the world.
Yep.
So you have this experience climbing up to the top of Kive Peak with your family. So just kind of talk about that, like how you were feeling after that, kind of looking forward at life.
Yeah. Well, and then, I was looking forward to life because also after the surgery, when they ran the biopsy, I came back as cancer free. So they were able to remove all of the cancer.
Amazing.
And so at the same moment as I was healing from the surgery, which was painful and hard as well, my body was regaining its strength and energy that it had pre-cancer, which I'd probably been carrying the cancer for 5 or 6 years from what the doctor told me on the size of the tumor. And so everything was starting to bounce back, and I was like feeling better than I had ever felt. And so I was excited. And then I just was happy. Probably
just like grateful, right? Just like almost like you get another
grateful and
chance at life.
Yep. And then I just wanted to I became more sympathetic to what other people are going through and what other people problems are having, and I understood the mental issues too that people have and suffer through, and to where you go to dark places, and sometimes it's not that easy to get out of it.
No,
for sure. So
an interesting thing, you can almost, I think, tell sometimes when people have suffered a lot.
Yeah,
because it makes them softer. You can just tell that, like you said, there's a sense of compassion, right? Yep. There's a sense of like, I went through this really, really, really hard thing, and other people have too, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of other people have gone through really, really difficult, challenging things. And there's like I don't know, I think you can pick up on that energy with people.
Yeah, definitely.
So now, here we are in 2024. What have the past couple years looked like for you?
They've been great. I did that race 9 months after the surgery. It was a 100-mile race down Bryce Canyon, and
what a place to race, right?
What a comeback! And it ended up, to this day, is still my best performance at a race ever. I took 4th overall, and never been able to run an ultra that well.
Yeah,
and I just, to this day, it still has become my best. And so I've ran some 100Ks since then, and I've done the St. George Marathon since then, and a few different things. And I feel like I'm back at it. I have the permanent colostomy, but it's like second nature. It's not even any big deal.
You're still able to do all these amazing things.
It doesn't hinder anything. It doesn't stop you from doing anything. It's not that hard to handle. It's not that hard to take care of. I probably spend less time in the bathroom than I ever did before. So with it.
What does it feel like, when you're in that race, Bryce Canyon, right?
Yeah.
What does that feel like when you're in the moment?
Oh, I think that's why I did so well, because I was just in the moment the whole time. When you do a 100-mile race, you're not in the moment the whole time.
Yeah.
There's always down times. There's always times where you're doubting if you can do it. There's always times where you're hurt, you don't want to go on. And this race, I definitely had moments where I hurt. My legs were sore. They didn't want to keep going. But my mind was there. My mind was like, you just beat cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to what you went through, the 100 miles is nothing. And that's how my mindset was through that entire race. It's like, and I was just excited. I was like smiling the whole time, because I was just like, I'm back. I'm like, I've never felt this good, and I'm back.
Awesome.
So
do you, when you're running or hiking, is there a kind of, people talk about a kind of euphoria experience?
Oh, for sure.
You feel that?
Yep. I feel like if I'm having a rough day at work or a long day at work or something, you just didn't have a good day at work, employees were kind of moody or stuff like that, and I'm pretty close. I'll go up Rock Canyon and summit Squaw and just
Feel better.
Yep. And it's always like the same point on the trail. Same as soon as you hit those meadows up top. And it's just like, I would describe it as euphoria.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited to be out there. And I've done that trail so many times. People are like, don't you get bored on the trails? I'm like, no, I don't get bored on the same trails.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Aaron. We'll continue the discussion in our next episode, including the limitations and new appreciations of Aaron's post-cancer journey, as well as some of his favorite hikes. Thanks again to Aaron for joining us. You can follow him at Ragnar23 on Instagram. Escape the Noise is produced by Timpanogos Hiking Co. I'm your host, Joe Vogel. A big thank you to Kai Bradford for his assistance with scheduling and production, to the Wildfires for our intro music, and to Silicon Slopes and Weston Tanner for hosting us and helping us make it all happen. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you again next episode.